Question 1. What law deals with credit, APR, and advertising of consumer loans? The answer, TILA, Regulation Z. Question 2. Which regulation prohibits kickbacks? That would be RESPA. Question 3. Which regulation requires the lender to cancel PMI when the loan reaches 78% LTV? That would be HIPAA, the Homeowners Protection Act. Question 4. Which regulation prohibits fee splitting? That would be RESPA. Question 5. X is the letter used to describe which regulation? That would be RESPA. Question 6. RESPA is the acronym used to describe which law? Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. Question 7. What type of mortgage requires a non-refundable funding fee? That would be the VA loan. Question 8. What is the provision in a mortgage enabling a lender to demand full payment if the borrower defaults on the loan? That's called the acceleration clause. Question 9. What is the provision in a mortgage enabling a lender to demand full payment if the borrower transfers the loan? That will be the alienation clause, not to be confused with the acceleration clause. Question 10. What does CFPB stand for? That would be the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Question 11. What two laws created the CFPB? The Dodd-Frank Act and the Consumer Finance Protection Act created the CFPB. Question 12. Which regulation is designed to help meet the credit needs of communities in which it operates? That would be the CRA, Community Reinvestment Act. Question 13. Under ECOA rules and regulations, how many days does the borrower have to request a copy of an appraisal report if the application was denied? That would be 90 days. Question 14. Under ECOA rules and regulations, if an application for credit is denied, and if requested by the borrower, how many days does the lender have to provide a copy of an appraisal report? That would be 30 days. Question 15. If an application is approved under ECOA rules and regulations, when must a copy of the appraisal be provided to the borrower? 3 business days prior to the loan closing. Question 16. Conforming loans follow the guidelines of which regulators? That will be Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Question 17. Which regulation requires the lenders to be equal when extending credit to the borrowers? That will be ECOA. Regulation B. The lenders must be equal. Just a hint to help you out. Question 18. How old must a borrower be to qualify for a reverse mortgage? The borrower must be 62 years old. Question 19. Which regulation has the primary function of preventing identity theft? That will be the FACT Act, sometimes called FACTA. Question 20. Which regulation has Section 114 rules? That would also be the FACT Act, sometimes called FACTA, which is adding an A to the end. Question 21. Which regulation requires the creditor to verify the validity of any change of address received? That will be Section 114 of the FACT Act. Question 22. What is the payment method used in a reverse mortgage that allows the homeowners to receive a monthly check while living in the property? That payment method is called tenure, the tenure method. Question 23. What is a fraud scheme where a borrower uses someone else's name to purchase the property, but that person will not be living at the property? We call that a straw borrower. Question 24. What type of lender insures mortgages? That would be the FHA approved lenders. Question 25. What type of lender guarantees mortgages? The VA approved lenders and the USDA approved lenders guarantees mortgages. Question 26. What is the entity that loans money to fund purchases in rural areas? That will be the USDA Department of Agriculture. Question 27. What is the value remaining in the property after all liens and debts have been paid? That's what we all hope for. It's called equity. Question 28. A borrower is refinancing his home. How much time does Reg C give him to change his mind, meaning to rescind? That answer, 3 days. Question 29. Which regulation establishes the 3-day right of rescission rule? That will be TILA, Regulation Z. We like to call it TILA the Godzilla. Question 30. Redlining is part of which regulation or law? Redlining is part of the Fair Housing Act. Question 31. Blockbusting is part of which regulation or law? Blockbusting is part of the Fair Housing Act. Question 32. Steering is part of which regulation or law? Steering is part of the Fair Housing Act. Question 33. Trying to convince a homeowner to sell his home by implying that another race or ethnicity is moving into the neighborhood is called? That is an example of blockbusting, also called panic selling. Question 34. Trying to convince a homeowner to purchase in a particular neighborhood based on his race, religion, or ethnicity is called? That is called steering. Question 35. Refusing to make loans on a property in a certain neighborhood for discriminatory reasons is called? That is called redlining. Question 36. What does HOPA stand for? HOPA. H-O-E-P-A. That stands for the Home Ownership and Equity Protection Act. HOPA. Question 37. HOPA loans are part of which larger regulation? HOPA loans are part of Regulation Z, TILA, the Godzilla. Question 38. High-cost loans are part of which larger regulation? They are a part of Regulation Z, TILA. Question 39. High-priced loans are part of which larger regulation? They are also a part of Regulation Z, TILA. So you can kind of see why we're calling it the Godzilla. It is a very large law. Question 40. Section 32 loans are part of which larger regulation? That will be Regulation Z, TILA. Question 41. Section 35 loans are part of which larger regulation? That would be Regulation Z, TILA. Question 42. Medea Act is part of which larger regulation? You guys are getting it by now. That's Reg Z, TILA. Question 43. Mortgage Disclosure Improvement Act is part of which larger regulation? You got it. Regulation Z, TILA. Question 44. What is another name for annual percentage rate? That would be the effective rate. Question 45. What is another name for interest rate? There are two actually, the note rate or nominal rate. Question 46. PITI divided by gross monthly income is referred to as what? That will be the housing ratio, or sometimes called the front-end DTI, front-end debt to income ratio. Question 47, PITI plus monthly debt divided by gross monthly income is referred to as what? That will be the total obligation ratio, the TAR, sometimes called the back-end ratio or back-end DTI, debt to income ratio. Question 48, how long must TILA disclosures be kept? Their answer is 2 years. Don't let them trick you on this one. Any TILA disclosure could be kept for 2 years. There are exceptions, however. The exceptions, the LE, loan estimate, is kept for 3 years, and the CD, closing disclosure, is kept for 5 years. Make sure you don't get tricked on this one. If they don't call them by name and they just say TILA disclosures, that's 2 years. Question 49. What is the maximum amount of time that negative info can remain on a credit report? The answer there is 7 years. Question 50. What is the maximum amount of time that a bankruptcy can remain on a credit report? That answer there will be 10 years. No matter what type of bankruptcy, Chapter 7, Chapter 11, Chapter 13, Chapter 20, the answer is 10 years.